because we critique capitalism doesn't mean we're socialist or communist. It's just capitalism has reached a stage where it's exploitation at this point. If you cannot pay people a livable wage where they can actually make progress, we don't need your solutions in the comment section of like, would you ever think about peanut butter and jelly? Yes, everyone's thought about peanut butter and jelly and ramen, but why should a 32-year-old college graduate with a master's degree be living in a garage with a space heater eating peanut butter and jelly to show how disciplined they are? The system is up. If a graduate with a master's degree to be financially responsible enough to purchase a house in the city he or she was born and to be able to invest meaningfully, meaning like $1,000 a month into the stock market, that they would have to live in a garage and eat peanut butter and jelly as a 32-year-old with a master's degree, the system is broken. And why it's broken is because all we have to do is look back to the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, where you could be an average skilled American worker and that job was enough to buy you a house 5 to 7 minutes from work and raise a family. Yes, it was smaller. Yes, you didn't have air conditioning, but you had an appreciating asset and you took a step towards adulthood and moving and building a family and you were paycheck to paycheck, but you had more. And the data hasn't caught up yet. All of these numbers are bad enough. There hasn't been enough time to see the true fallout of what happened after the pandemic.
We're here again. We're here again. I'm a licensed therapist of 22 years, and things in the US couldn't possibly be worse. Let me give you an example, okay? So today I happen to be sitting in my own waiting room. I own a group practice, and there were probably 8 to 9 people sitting in the waiting room waiting for their appointments. And one person happened to start a conversation, which almost never happens in the waiting room. Most people just sit there kind of silently waiting for their clinician. But this person started off a conversation, and it sparked this whole thing about how depressed and anxious and broke everyone is. And that therapy, while great and helpful and wonderful, is barely scratching the surface. I could relate to everything that everybody was saying in my waiting room. Everything is bad. And I'm not exaggerating. This is not hyperbolic. Our healthcare, our taxes, our grocery prices, gas costs are unaffordable. We cannot afford to live in this country unless you're in the top percent. The average person in the US cannot afford to exist. I'm not totally sure how we dig out of this hole. All I know is that we sounded the alarm bells. We are here in spite of that. And it is awful. It's awful.
Lately, it feels like everywhere online people are asking the same question. Why does normal life seem so much harder to afford now? Even for people who are working hard and trying to do everything right. Today, we're looking at some of the conversations people have been having about rising costs, disappearing job opportunities, and why so many Americans feel stuck. With these clips showing a bigger picture behind that frustration. Because when groceries, bills, and even getting a simple first job starts feeling difficult, it creates a bigger question about whether the path to financial stability that people were promised still works the same anymore.
This is the thing that nobody talks about when it comes to finances, is that like most of the financial advice out there is very much like choose a budget, pay off your debt, like, stick to your plan for the future, all these things like snowball, save X amount, then put it in an investment portfolio. And those are all very logical steps. But the thing that is not talked about in the financial space is how emotional money is. Money's not a numbers problem, a math problem. Money's not a math issue, because if it was a math issue, 4th grade math would have fucking solved that. So money is an emotional problem. And the thing that people don't realize, like I'm thinking back to when I was, how old was I? 21 years old, and I was living on my own off of $15 an hour. And before that, I was 20 years old living on my own off of $10 an hour. But I remember like starting to become aware of the fact that I was like, I have a hard time thinking about next week, next month, forget about next year. And like there's science behind that. Like literally when you are in survival mode, blood flows away from the front of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that's in charge of like thinking about the fucking future, emotional regulation, impulse control, and complex decision making. All that blood flows straight back to your amygdala, which is in the center of your brain. It's part of the limbic system, and it's part of the fight or flight system within your brain. It is so cognitively taxing. It is physiologically taxing to be poor. Like, this is the thing that nobody talks about, is that, like, it is not just mentally draining, it is physically draining to be poor, because every decision you make is a high stakes decision. Like, every single thing that you're doing, every fucking piece of food you put in the grocery cart, every purchase, every rent payment, every utility bill, it is literally life or death in your brain, because like you're that close. You're on a razor thin edge of like your whole life collapsing. And so the way that I got out of this, and what I wish I would have understood earlier, is that the more you practice using your prefrontal cortex, the easier it is to use it, and like the easier it is to default on that. And so it becomes easier to think about the future. It becomes easier to use dopamine, which is like a cleaner source of energy in the brain, versus cortisol, epinephrine, or adrenaline, and glucose, which is what fight or flight runs on. And the way that I practiced this was by planning out my week. I'd done this for 8 years, and I'm not kidding. You might be like, oh yeah, planning out your week broke you out of poverty. Yes. It did, because it literally exercised the part of my brain that I needed to think about the future, to regulate my emotions, and to make complex decisions and practice impulse control. And so now I know everybody's natural next question is like, what planner do you use? It's linked in my bio if you do want it. I don't give a shit if you buy it or not. You buy any planner. You don't have to buy a planner. You can literally use a free online template. But if you want the one I'm using, I have it linked. But like that practice in itself, it's not about the plan going according to plan. It's about exercising your prefrontal cortex. And the more repetitions you get exercising, the stronger it gets, and the more capable you are going to be about thinking about the future, and the less you're going to reside in fight or flight.
One of the biggest frustrations people are feeling right now is that things that used to feel completely normal are starting to feel like decisions that require planning. A trip to the grocery store, filling up a gas tank, or grabbing food with friends can suddenly feel like something you have to think twice about. A lot of people remember when small purchases didn't feel like they could affect the entire week, but that feeling has changed for many families. The hardest part is that these aren't always huge expenses that people are wasting money on. A lot of the time it's just basic things people need to live their everyday lives. Even small increases in prices matter when everything happens everywhere at the same time. That few extra dollars on groceries, a higher phone bill, or another monthly payment can slowly make a paycheck disappear faster than people expected. That's why so many Americans online have been talking about opening their wallets and wondering where all the money went. It feels like there's less room for mistakes than before. One unexpected expense can completely change someone's plans for the month, and for people who are already trying to save money, that can make progress feel almost impossible. The conversation about late fees showed this perfectly, because something as simple as missing a payment can turn into another problem instead of just being a small mistake. People aren't just frustrated that prices are getting higher, they're frustrated that there's less breathing room when life gets expensive. The idea of being financially comfortable used to feel like a realistic goal for people who worked hard and managed their money. Now, many people feel like they're constantly trying to catch up with costs that keep moving faster than their income. That feeling is especially noticeable for younger Americans who are entering adulthood and realizing the world they're stepping into is much more expensive than they expected. The problem isn't that people suddenly forgot how to handle money, it's that the cost of simply maintaining a normal lifestyle has become a much bigger challenge for a lot of people.
A lot of people in America are drowning. A lot of people are struggling to make ends meet. And most importantly, a lot of us are just sick and tired of being sick and tired. We're fed up with living to work. We're fed up with going into the store and spending like $50, $60 on 4 items. We're fed up with the boomers telling us that we're lazy and we're financially irresponsible. We didn't get the chance that we deserve to get. Realistically speaking, with how much energy we put into working our existences away, we should literally be homeowners right now. Yet there's a lot of people in their late 20s, early 30s who are still living at home because rent prices are impossible. We're fed up with these employers exploiting the shit out of us, paying us as little as they can possibly get away with just so the company can make record fucking profits. If you're tired, if you're fed up, if you just don't want to participate in this society anymore, I don't blame you, because realistically, we're flushing our entire lives down the toilet for absolutely no reason.
I'm not gonna lie, late fee is so weak, because if I couldn't afford to pay you on time, what make you think I'm gonna be able to pay you with a late fee included? That extra $50 to $100 is overly crucial. I was barely able to get you the original old amount, and you talking about now I gotta pay another $100 2 days after it was due. I'm sorry that the fucking bill fell on a random Wednesday and I get paid on a Friday. If I had the money, bitch, I would have been paid you before the shit was even due. Y'all be mad as hell when that bitch in the portal not getting paid. I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna give you what I owe you, and that's it. That $30, y'all can take that shit, $100, $50, whatever the fuck it is. Take that late fee, shove it so far up y'all ass that y'all can taste the dollar sign that's in front of it.
One of the most frustrating parts about struggling financially is that having less money can actually make everyday life more expensive. A lot of people assume that saving money is just about making better choices, but that ignores how many situations are outside of someone's control. When you don't have enough extra money sitting around, you lose access to a lot of options that make things cheaper. For example, buying bulk is cheaper, but not everyone can afford to spend more upfront just to save later. The same thing happens when someone can immediately replace a broken item or handle an unexpected bill. Instead of paying for the cheapest option, they might have to choose the only option they can afford at that moment. Over time, those small disadvantages start adding up. That's why so many people are talking about how expensive it can be to be poor. It's not just about having less money in your account, it's about having fewer ways to avoid extra costs. Even something like a late payment can become a bigger problem when someone is already trying to stretch every dollar. A fee that might seem small to one person can completely throw off someone else's budget. And once someone falls behind, catching back up becomes harder and harder because they're already starting from a worse position. This creates a cycle where people spend more time recovering from problems instead of actually moving forward. A lot of Americans are realizing that financial struggles are not always caused by one bad decision. Sometimes it's a series of small setbacks happening in a situation where there's no extra room to recover. This is why the conversation has changed from simply telling people to manage money better to asking why so many people have little flexibility in the first place. Because when every mistake becomes more expensive, even responsible people can feel like they're constantly one step behind.
And as unfortunate as it is, the whole idea of a teen job or a teenager summer job, that shit is long gone, baby. The people in these motherfucking jobs be 60, 70 years old working at fucking Shake Shack and Chick-fil-A. And I'm not saying that in a demeaning way. I'm just saying, like, that's how fucking bad the economy is. Like, there's no more jobs reserved specifically for teens. Like, these is grown-up jobs at this point. This shit is for everybody. You got grown-ass people, like I said, working at McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, skating rinks, ice cream shops to feed their fucking kids. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's a wrap for the teens in that regard. It's fucked up, but it's a wrap.
For a lot of younger Americans, the biggest frustration is realizing that even the first steps towards independence are becoming harder to reach. Growing up, many people heard the same advice: get a job, save some money, work hard, and eventually things will fall into place. But for a lot of teenagers today, even getting that first opportunity isn't as simple as it sounds. Many young people have been talking about how difficult it is to find basic entry-level jobs that used to be seen as easy ways to gain experience. A first job was supposed to be the starting point where someone learned responsibility and began building their own money. Now, some teens feel like even getting that starting point requires more effort than expected. And when someone can't even get their foot in the door, it becomes harder to build the skills and savings needed for the future. This frustration connects to why so many Gen Z and millennials feel like adulthood looks completely different than what they were prepared for. The goals themselves have not changed. People still want stability, independence, and a chance to build a good life. The problem is that the path towards these goals become less predictable than before. Housing costs are higher, everyday expenses take up more money, and opportunities that once help people get started are harder to find. That can make young people feel like they're being asked to reach the same finish line while starting much further behind. But the important part is that the frustration isn't coming from people who don't want to work. A lot of young people are actively looking for ways to improve their situation, whether that means working, learning new skills, or finding different opportunities. They're just noticing that the whole formula for success doesn't always match the reality they're entering. And when millions of people start questioning the same things, it shows that this feeling isn't just one person struggling with money, it's a generation trying to understand how to build a future in a world that changed faster than the advice they were given. The biggest challenge for younger Americans isn't lack of ambition, it's figuring out how to succeed when the starting point looks completely different from how it did in the past.